So in the studio, we're all glued to the monitor looking at these babies and these children, and we're just so happy. And I'm so happy to have you here. So we have Pastor Jim Powell, his wife Sharon Powell, and my new friend Sophia Andrews. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very, very happy and honored, and I'm just thrilled to have you here.
We're glad
Thank
to
you
be
so
here.
much.
So I'm going to ask if you would start, Jim, with explaining to us, how did you decide, when did God place it in your heart to start this thing, Happy Life?
In the year 2000, the men went on a retreat to the Poconos on an innocent Saturday. Steve Kamau, who was a fellow from Kenya that had recently come to our church, walking down a dirt road, and he says, why don't we open a home in Kenya for abandoned babies? That was it. We never questioned it. We probably didn't pray about it as much as we should have, but the Lord took it from there. And that was in the year 2000, and we got our first kids to take care of in 2002.
So explain a little bit what Happy Life is, and I'll leave that up to either one of you.
She's good.
Happy Life is a home for abandoned babies. That was our first goal, to rescue the abandoned babies. And it's grown since then, since 2002, when we rescued the first 3 children. And actually, the twins that were part of those first 3 children got adopted into Delaware. So that's very exciting. We just saw them in August. They're now going to be 17, and it's crazy to think about that. But that was the goal. The goal was to rescue abandoned babies. And it is a problem in Kenya. It's a problem everywhere all over the world, but with poverty and many different reasons, there's a lot of abandonment. So.
Now, can you explain abandonment to me? Because when I hear it, I'm thinking the kid just left somewhere, or is it that the mother is just leaving it at the doorstep or something? So,
good question, and there's lots of ways they abandon children. Sometimes it is on the street. The 2 twins that were part of the first 3 children, they were abandoned in a plastic bag, just 2 days old. And sometimes women are desperate, and they do desperate things. Other times, they go to the hospital, and they may not give their correct name, and they leave in the night after they've had the child, and it's abandoned. Other times, they go to the hospital with the intent of giving their child up. So at Happy Life, they call those children that the mother has intended on giving them up, and everybody knows, they call them mother offers. The mother has offered her child to be adopted. So
Some really sad stories.
yeah, there's a lot of sad stories.
Benaiah, who we saw, he was found in a garbage bin with a rope around his neck. The umbilical cord wasn't cut, and somebody heard him and rescued him. And we've had 2 where they've had ropes around their neck. A desperate mother. We had a lady have a cesarean, and she left that same night. And
From the hospital.
We have that child. It's desperation from a variety of sources.
Yeah.
Can you tell Grace's story with her ear?
Yeah, Grace was found at the side of a woody area. So a dog had actually dragged her to the roadside, and they think that the dog was trying to help her be saved, and her ear was already missing, and that was probably from an animal in the woods that had bitten off her ear.
But he didn't, like, she has 2 little scars on her cheek, and her ear was gone. But it was a miracle, because it was like the dog or whatever the animal was didn't eat her or bite her. It was clearly,
trying to save her.
The sweetest child.
And
So sweet.
We've seen her since she's
child.
been adopted.
Yes.
She came when we were there, and the mother had her hair such that it was down on the side. You
She's a
couldn't tell
beautiful little
anything,
girl.
and she'll have some kind of surgery in the years to come when they think it's the right time to, to put a replacement ear on. She's so happy.
And the Lord uses all kinds of people to adopt the children. The girl who adopted Grace was actually one of the social workers who was coming to Happy
wow.
Life to show another couple the children, and she saw Grace and just fell in love with her. So there's so many good stories.
And the thing we're most excited about is when we first started, they did international adoptions from Northern Europe and from America. You had to live there 6 months to adopt. Then they stopped international. They started it again and stopped. 95% of our adoptions are Kenyans adopting Kenyan.
Which
Kenyan
is very
children.
exciting.
Really?
Yeah,
We've
very
taken in
exciting.
about over 500 abandoned children. Over 300 have been adopted, almost all by Kenyans. And that's exciting. I don't know how it compares to other countries, but when a country adopts their own children, that's great.
Right.
Now, has a problem come up where the international adoption has stopped, start, where they won't let it continue?
It's hard because some of it's behind the scenes that we don't know about, child trafficking, selling children, something with adoption agencies that are not doing something right with the international community. We never hear why.
Okay.
If it opens again, that would be great, but the Lord's provided Kenyans to adopt.
And that's no small thing also, because my brother-in-law, is Kenyan, and he was explaining to me that that wasn't always accepted.
No.
That's right.
Adopting a child. So the fact that now that's not so stigmatized is,
Exactly.
we want to bring Sophia into the story. So Sophia, how do you fit into this whole happy life? Tell us your story.
So it's kind of a long story. I'll try to make it shorter. But I first visited Happy Life in 2016. I was 14 years old, and I went with my youth group at the time, which is from Reach Church. And I went on the trip, and prior to going on the trip, I started sponsoring a little girl, Esther, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about that. But I went on the trip, and I finally got to meet her, which was amazing. Like, she's so sweet. I think she was about 3 or 4 at the time. And one day I was asked to go in and to help teach the 3rd grade class. And so I went in, and I taught, and I found out that the kids really like to do dance, and they like to sing, and they like to do all these different things. Just like, wow, that's what I do. I'm a dancer. I like to perform. And up until that point, I was just like, I always wanted to be a missionary, and I was just like, how can I combine my love of dancing and singing with mission work? Because in my mind, I was like, okay, that's not possible. But when I went there, I was like, well, this is so cool. I can actually, dance and perform and be a missionary at the same time. So that's a little bit about how Ngoma Kenya was birthed, and now we teach it to the children at Happy Life Children's Home. So.
She is an ambassador,
Yes.
a very young, active, energetic ambassador for Happy Life.
Yeah.
So
And
you
for
were just there, weren't you? When
Yes,
were you there?
I went for 6 weeks this past summer. So I left in June, and I came back at the end of July.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned sponsorship, so we
Yes.
want to talk about that because it's very important. So I'm going to let any of you take that one, sponsorship.
Sharon's a good one.
I love sponsorship, and my heart is there because when you sponsor a child, you actually can have contact with that child, especially if you can come to Kenya and visit, like Nikki has done, and Sophia has done, and Sophia's parents. But we sponsor for our 3 grandchildren so that our grandchildren can learn about another country, and that not everybody has everything that they have, and they can communicate with that child. Now, generally what happens when you sponsor, you can sponsor for $30 a month or more. That's up to the person. $30 a month takes care of food and clothing, and if you sponsor more, a bigger amount of money, it can take care of other things as well, staffing and that kind of thing. But it's important for those children to be connected to somebody, and a sponsor prays for that child. I think that's one of the most exciting thing. Those children know that they have somebody that's praying for them. If you're sponsoring a baby, obviously that little baby doesn't really realize, but as they grow, they do. And I know Shayna has sponsored Hadassah for a long time, and she's seen Hadassah grow, and Hadassah recognizes her when she goes to Kenya. That's a beautiful part of it. Not everybody can go to Kenya, and we understand that. But you can still have a connection to that child. What happens is when you sponsor a child, Sarah, who is the administrator at Happy Life, will send emails about every 3 or 3.5 months about that child. So you can see a picture. Usually there's a picture attached to those emails, and she tells you some things that are going on with the child. That's the way our sponsorship program works. When Jim and I go over, we like to take things that people have given. Letters especially are very exciting to the kids to get. A picture maybe of their sponsor, because not everybody's going to be able to go to Kenya, but if they have a picture of that sponsor, they know who it is that's praying for them and making a difference in their life.
My sister sponsors Daniel.
Okay.
He's 16, he's taller than the most because he came to Happy Life through the community. And we gave the letter from my sister, and he took it off and read it, and within a matter of minutes came back and said, "Can I have a picture of Winnie?
Yeah, because
Can I have a picture of her?" And that connection, when they come, these kids have no uncles, no aunts, no grandmothers, no grandfathers, no nephews, no cousins. They know nothing about their original family. And Happy Life becomes part of that. It is their family, and then with the sponsors, it evens broaden that family. And as these kids grow up, I think the connections are going to be even more.